Welcome everyone to the SOVAM Week 2 recap plus Monday Night Football Preview Edition here on the SOVAM feed. Gonna recap what we saw on the Sunday schedule in the NFL. I'll handicap both. Yes, two games on the schedule for the Monday Night Football for Week 2 to cap off this week. Get you our best bets. Get you guys a coupon code over for pregame.com. And give you our instant reactions to what we saw here on Sunday for week 2. But joining me on this episode, as always, as he will all throughout the season, I got my co-host with me, partner in crime. It's Mackenzie Rivers. Mac, what's going on, my man? How you doing?
What is up? Happy to be with you, man. How's it going?
Not too bad, man. It was a fun week of football. We'll get into it here all momentarily, but it was a tale of 2 weeks. I guess we can say week one. Traditionally, we see a lot of unders happening in week one. I guess teams getting the rust off, meaningful football. And then week two, you kind of make your adjustments. And we did see some fireworks this week. I know last week, Mac, we talked a lot about unders, and this week it was all overs. I think 10-3 was the number towards the overs here. But we'll start with what was just fresh on our mind. That is Sunday Night Football here, Mac. A little bit of a snooze fest, to say the least, at least for what we saw in week one, which is already at the game of the year, as far as the power rankings probably go between the Ravens and the Bills last week. But complete opposite here. It took about, 57 minutes for us to see the first touchdown of the game from Mr. One Tyler Algier. Other than that, it was just field goals after field goals after field goals. And for the Minnesota side of things, JJ McCarthy didn't play well, to say the least. We'll get into
No.
all that here. But what are your thoughts on the Atlanta Falcons, now 2-0, as the Minnesota Vikings now even their record at 1-1 for this season?
You know, it was a snooze fest, let's not lie. Like the one touchdown came after really the game was over because there was a fourth down. The Falcons were smart. They go for it thinking if they don't get it, the Vikings defense that hasn't done anything all game, score is 15-6 at this point, will have to go down and score and get the ball back. And being up 12 isn't really that much better than being up 9. Let's go for the win. Let's end it right here. They get that fourth down. And then, I mean, Brian Flores' defense is human. They, what's the point of stopping them at that point on the 8-yard line? So even the one touchdown in the game was largely irrelevant. But that's what the Falcons, brought in Raheem Morris to do, was not to win flashy, but to win with defense and 220 yards rushing on the ground. Um, it makes the Buccaneers look better because the Buccaneers go into Atlanta last week and win a game that could have gone either way. We'll see what they do tonight against the Texans. But if the Falcons lost to the Buccaneers and they're a legitimate team, the NFC South outside of the Panthers and the Saints might not be as terrible this year.
Yeah, I need to correct myself. I believe I said that 2-0 Falcons, but they're 1-1 because they did lose last week to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But yeah, I mean, you take a look at the total yardage from this game: 326, 198 in favor of the Falcons. Of course, you're 5.2 yards per play for the Falcons, 4.3. Just weren't really able to execute. Neither team was, honestly, in the red zone. But Vikings only make one trip into the red zone. The Falcons had 5 different opportunities. And like we mentioned, there was a lot of field goals in this game. Falcons also dominate the time of possession, 36 minutes and 32 seconds compared to 23 minutes and 28 seconds for the Minnesota Vikings. But I think the big question and what people are going to be talking about on Monday and throughout the week is, JJ McCarthy. I mean, is
Sure.
he the long-term answer? I mean, look, it's only a 2-game sample, of course. And we saw what he was able to do last week, right? That he was able to will the Minnesota Vikings against the Chicago Bears and get him that victory in the second half there. But I mean, the number of sacks that he took in this game, Mac, the turnovers, of course, I mean, that's not going to lead you to winning very many football games. 4 turnovers for the Minnesota Vikings, 1 turnover for the Atlanta Falcons. And you mentioned that Bijan Robinson was absolutely fantastic for this Falcons team. And I think he will be, of course, throughout the season. But 2-game sample for McCarthy, probably going through some, the transition from the collegiate level, of course. And, this was his first 2 games after suffering the injury that ended his
Mhm.
season early last year. But what are your thoughts on McCarthy? I mean, obviously it's the arrow's only going to be going up for him, but is he the long-term answer for this Minnesota Vikings team?
Is the arrow only going up? I mean, I guess that's what we say with young quarterbacks, but it seems like in a blink of an eye, a young quarterback is fighting for his life to be an NFL starter. Talk to Caleb Williams. Um, I made a major asterisk when accessing Cam Ward last week, saying, "Hey, number one overall picks going to Denver. Very
Yep.
difficult place to play. Most number one overall picks have a very bad first game, and Cam Ward had an 8.8 QBR. JJ McCarthy couldn't have asked for a better week one in the NFL. Became a father right afterwards, so
Yeah.
1-1 for his children out there. I have to ask you, like, do you give him the excuse of the adrenaline dump, the major comeback win, all the glory of last week, in addition to that long hours and late nights of becoming a father this week, as you have experienced?
Yeah.
Is that an excuse, ready-made excuse for the young one?
I think so, especially, with a newborn and I believe his first child as well there that, he probably had the late nights and I mean, family is everything, right? Family's always first what we talk about, in life. And that maybe did take a little bit of a toll. And also, Mac, let's not forget his first two starts this season were all both in prime time, right?
Yeah.
Last week, Monday Night Football against the Bears. This week, Sunday Night Football against the Atlanta Falcons. So I think tough sledding there for JJ McCarthy. So next week, I think they do play the Bengals, and we'll talk about some of the injuries throughout the NFL momentarily here. But that defense for the Cincinnati Bengals, we talked about it. It's going to struggle this season. So I think a prime opportunity for him to kind of just take a deep breath. You had your first child, and you had two primetime games. Just kind of get back in the film room because you have one of the best, if not the best, wide receivers in the entire football league in Jay Jetta and Justin Jefferson. Right? You have a great
Yeah.
offensive minded head coach in Kevin O'Connell. We saw what he's able to do with Sam Darnold last season, and so I think he's going to be okay. Like you mentioned, just a lot going on for him this week. But in fact, Falcons do get a big victory on the road here, 22-6 in this game on Sunday Night Football. Anything else from Sunday Night Football, Mac?
As much as an asterisk as I'll give him, and I'll give him the same one I gave Cam Ward, you do have to prove positively that you are an improvement over Sam Darnold if this vision is going to come to fruition. Sam Darnold, big game, 100 yards over his over-under, 31 points in Pittsburgh. I know 7 of them were the most clownish 7 points you'll ever see conceded by the Steelers. But even giving him an excuse, you get to have a bad game. I still don't know if the Vikings made the right decision. We're going to see, and that's all. That's obviously what will define this season. Did they make an improvement, or did they just get a cheaper quarterback that's not going to win them a Super Bowl like all the other quarterbacks in their history?
Yeah, the Bears now sitting at 0-2 this season, and the NFC North 2-1-1 teams, and the Vikings and the Lions, and then the Green Bay Packers sitting at 2-0. Would some may argue looking like the best team possibly in the NFL through 2 weeks here. Now let's quickly recap the contests that are happening, of course, this season over at Circa. The Grandissimo, the big $100,000 entry, the first entry has been eliminated as one entry this week did have the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that now is down to 68. 26 of the 69 this week had the Baltimore Ravens, followed by the Cardinals, who 16 picks there, 10 for the Cowboys, 7 for the Lions, and then 6 for the Rams, and it goes on from there. I won't get into all the details. And the Circus Survivor, I think a little bit more carnage this week. Not really carnage, quote unquote, but we did see some eliminations. Number one, let's start with 19 people, or 19 entries, I should say, that did not have picks this week. The number one most picked team was the Arizona Cardinals at 5,169.
Which is surprising considering they're not the favorite, but also the right pick. They won pretty easily. A little bit closer than the Ravens game.
Yeah. Ravens, 4,420 entries, and this one got a little bit dicey. Cowboys were obviously the third most popular pick this week at 3,506. The Rams,
dicey. Yes, dicey. I mean, it's exclamation point. There's a long time in my life where I knew the record 63 yards because Jason Elam on my VHS tape, set that in the Super Bowl year for the Broncos. He had 63 yards. It had tied a record from some guy that kicked without a shoe in the 70s, the grainy tape. Now people kick 64 yarders in overtime. It's like, oh, that was a close one. He almost lost. A
uh,
64 yarder. Wow.
I mean,
To get to
I,
send it to overtime.
did he hit like a 70-yard one in the preseason, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that? Did
It's
Brandon
all
Autry?
possible now. It's all
Yeah.
possible now. And what's
Um,
crazy is the 50 to 60 is way better than it's ever been percentage wise. The 40 to 50, the 30 to 40, it's like the same. These guys have a longer leg, but not necessarily better over. I mean, they're probably better overall, but not drastically better than years past statistically.
it took the sixth most picked team for the Elimination Circus Survivor, which was again the Steelers, 491, and the Vikings also had 355 that were eliminated. The 147 had the Dolphins, and we still have 104 that did pick the Texans on Monday Night Football. We'll get to that game later on in this episode. There,
But pretty
then
much chalk. If
yeah,
you paid your money for Survivor, you forked it over. Congratulations, you're on to week 3, and your implied value is like $1,050 now.
and then Circa Millions quickly. The top five most picked ATS teams. It was the Dallas Cowboys minus 5.5. They had
Ooh, swing and a miss.
1,884. Swing and a miss there for sure. Another swing and a miss. The Jets,
Mm.
1,429. Lions did cover. That was, I believe, the third most picked team. And then the Broncos were the most picked team this week by 3 entries, 1,887. Three more picks there than the Cowboys, but they also lose outright to the Indianapolis Colts. And then the fifth team, Mac, just rounded out here the Eagles -1 against the Chiefs, who did get a 3-point victory for the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career, a 3-game losing streak in the NFL. So, yeah, so that'll round out the contest here. All right, Mac, let's get into our biggest upgrades and downgrades after week 2, of course, pending Monday Night Football here. Let's start with some positivity. Who are the 3 teams that you upgraded after week 2?
Now, to recap my process here in a real pregame fashion, I do this scientifically. I give you the week 3 lines, what's moved, with a little bit of art saying it's probably 65% this team getting better versus 35% this team being downgraded. Considering all that, the number one upgraded team, I think without a question, is the Green Bay Packers,
Yeah, I
who
agree.
are a touchdown favorite in week 3 over the Browns. They are now a 9-point favorite. I don't think the Browns surprised a lot of people getting blown out. I think most of this 2-point upgrade off the key number of 7 is what Micah Parsons and that defense has been doing.
Yeah, Coach Kevin Stefanski, speaking of the Browns, come out and saying that there will not be a quarterback change quite yet from Joe Flacco. We did see a excuse me, a Dylan Gabriel appearance for the Browns, but now, like you mentioned, Parsons has looked really good, even with all the talk of the back injury that he's been dealing with. But now you have a Packers team, like you mentioned, that has extra rest, that played on Thursday Night Football and going up against one of the worst teams in the NFL. So this could be another long week, something similar to what we saw the Ravens do to the Browns in week 2 here. So no quarterback change looking like, and now you have Parsons that's going to be breathing down Joe Flacco's throat here, Max. So I fully agree with you on the Green Bay Packers. What else you got?
Next up, another game in week 3 where one team's looking up, one team's looking definitely down. But I think this team deserves a spot in the top 3 of upgraded list, and that's the Buffalo Bills, who moved from a 10.5-point favorite on a short week hosting the Miami Dolphins. That's what we thought last week. They are now up to 13 in some spots. I got to say, it's both. Bills looked great, Dolphins looked terrible. But considering I had the Jets plus 6.5, which I thought was a really good value, kickoff plus 5.5, ooh, 1 point of closing line value. Wow.
Yeah.
I personally have to say, I got that one wrong. Got to reevaluate how good the Bills are.
Yeah, 100%. I know we talked about the contest pod with Uncle Dave, and we all like the Jets there, but definitely a swing and a miss on that one. Speaking of the Jets, Justin Fields did leave the game for the Jets in the fourth quarter and is now has a concussion. So we'll see if he's able to go this week, or I should say in week 3 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now, who are sitting as a 7-point favorite. Anyone else on your upgrade list here, Mac?
Yes, and they were probably lucky to win, but I think they deserved an upgrade whether or not they made the game-winning kick, and that would be the Indianapolis Colts, who were a 2-point favorite over the Titans. They are now a 3-point favorite hosting the Titans, so major upgrade by the market, and I agree they're in the top three list. Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, like it. I mean, Daniel Jones has looked really, really good through the first 2 weeks here for the Indianapolis Colts right now, and he's now the fourth favorite to win Comeback Player of the Year at 7-1. Dak Prescott and Christian McCaffrey both at plus 180. Aiden Hutchinson at plus 450, and then Trevor Lawrence at 8-1 to round out the top five there in that category. Yeah, Colts, Jonathan Taylor looked really good. So they have, look like they have a great balance here. I know when you talk about Shane Steichen being I'll say good offensive mind. I don't want to crown him as the Kevin O'Connell's like
He doesn't
I've
get the
been.
G word. Yeah, he gets one G word. He gets a
Yeah,
little G word.
to every other coach I've been talking about, but so far 2 for 2 this season for the Colts. They're 2-0. So Daniel Jones looking really good for this Indianapolis Colts team. But I would agree with you. Definitely Green Bay Packers was on my list for sure. Buffalo, I mean, they've been taking care of business. Baltimore, we knew they were going to bounce back, especially up against a Browns team. So I really didn't take much away from that. And I'm curious about the Chargers. We'll talk about them on Monday Night Football against the Raiders there.
Yeah, a team I ascertained was upgraded a half point by the market, but maybe had as impressive as anybody was the Lions, the Ben
Yeah.
Johnson revenge game. I upgraded them a half point. They are now 6-point dogs at Baltimore in week 3.
Yeah, 52-21 victory there for the Detroit Lions. And what the offense last week in week 1 looked, I guess, quote unquote, maybe lost. And the questions were concerned that, hey, is Ben Johnson's departure going to affect this team? But put up a 50 burger in that week 2 matchup against the Chicago Bears there. Let's get into some downgrades here, Mac, for the week 2 conclusion here. Where are you taking us?
So the number one downgraded team is the New York Jets, who I somehow took as my best bet of last week, again on the contest pod with you and Mr. Diamond Dave Essler. So here's what happened. They were a 5.5-point underdog. Is that on the road? It's got to be on the road.
I believe they were at home this week, if I'm not mistaken.
No,
Oh,
no,
they're on
yeah,
the road
they were
next
at home.
week. Yeah.
They're at home this week, and
Yeah.
they're on the road next week.
Right.
I don't know if I would mind laying it anyway, but they were a 5.5-point dog at Tampa. Now they're laying a touchdown. Justin Fields had his best EPA game of his NFL career last week. He probably had the worst EPA game of all time this week, leaving without doing literally anything with a concussion. So maybe he's back, maybe he's not. Either way, the Jets downgraded a 1.5.
Yeah, 0-2 right now. Jets, of course, after losing to the Bills 30-10. And in a world where Justin Fields, yes, did leave the game with a concussion, but he had more rushing yards than passing yards in week 2. There 49 yards on the ground on 5 carries, and then he was only 3 of 11 for 25 yards for the New York Jets. So we'll see if he's able to go in week 2, like we mentioned. In week 3, dealing with a concussion that he was diagnosed with. Who else are we downgrading this week here, Mac?
Chicago Bears lost by a million. Maybe got unlucky with a out of bounds call at the end of the first half, but then they gave up 35 points after that. So hard to say they are off this list. Ben Johnson in trouble? I don't know, but they were 1.5-point favorites hosting the Cowboys. They are now a pick'em hosting the Cowboys next week.
Wow. Yeah, you mentioned it. The Detroit Lions and Jared Goff bounced back, 5 touchdown passes for him. More importantly, on the Chicago Bears side of things, questions and the future of maybe one Caleb Williams, still trying to figure out if he's going to be the guy of the future there. Even it's just 1 year removed. 19 of 30, 207, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He gets sacked 4 times for a loss of 43, a QBR Mac of 43.7 for Caleb Williams there. So right now, Ben Johnson.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
Yeah, not too bad, but yeah, 0-2 right now are the Chicago Bears. And like you mentioned, they will be taking on the Bears next, or sorry, they were hosting the Dallas Cowboys next week are the Chicago Bears. Any more downgrades for this week?
By the way, speaking of Caleb Williams losing his job, Trevor Lawrence was 9-8 He made the Pro Bowl, average QBR of 56 after his horrendous rookie season. So you might say, all right, well, Trevor Lawrence got a second chance. Caleb Williams is getting late in his second chance because he's got to do better than that in year two. My last downgrade, talked about this a little bit, but the Dolphins, you know, better effort, scored some points, but lost by a touchdown to a pretty average, if not below average, Patriots team. They are downgraded, at least in my eyes, a point by the Vegas market.
Yeah, the Dolphins. I mean, we talked about it last week. The defense, and how bad it has been thus far this season. First two games, they gave up 33 to the Colts. Week two, they gave up 33 to the New England Patriots. Drake May in this game, 19 of 23, 230 yards, two passing touchdowns. Had some success on the ground, did the Patriots, 29 carries, 122 yards as a team, 4.2 yards per carry. But again, right now, when it matters the most, we saw it. Tua throws that interception at the end of the game to clinch the victory for the New England Patriots there. Um, yeah, I really agree with your list, Mac. I mean, I don't think that there's any other teams that I would really significantly upgrade or downgrade. One team I do want to ask you about, the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? We saw them
Sure.
last week against the Jets in that shootout there, but now lose by 2 touchdowns at home against the Seattle Seahawks, and they were a popular pick this week. Whether it was just on the contest pod we talked about, the Steelers were bounced around, and they were one of the more popular picks. Whether it was in Survivor, whether it was in the contest there, but um, it was just a one-off game for this team, or is there some concerns about this Pittsburgh Steelers team because right now they're not able to generate anything in the running game? Last week they had some trouble, and it really was an effort from Aaron Rodgers, 4 touchdowns last week, but he did throw 2 picks in this game against the Seattle Seahawks.
And he had 4 touchdowns, and the advanced numbers didn't really like it as much as that, 4 touchdowns, 0 picks in week one said. And I think more powerfully, if we use the transitive property again, all right, so they won in week one, but they won to a Jets team whose quarterback had a 1 QBR against not them, but against them, he had the best game of his life. So the defense so far is definitely 0 for 2. Sam Darnold had a bad game against the Niners, put up 31 against the Steelers. Justin Fields got concussed and had the worst game in 3 years as a Jet for his second game against the Bills, but against the Steelers, put up 30 plus and easily could have won, probably should have won by a lot of advanced statistics. So I think the Steelers do deserve a downgrade by those two performances. So let's see the week three line. They're playing the Patriots,
Mm-hmm.
and they were a 1 point favorite um, at New England. I guess it has moved a little bit. They are still 1 point favorites at Bet Online and at DraftKings. Other spots are at Pick'em, so that's a slight downgrade for the Steelers. But I think that line might move. I think the Patriots might be significant favorites by the end of the betting window because I do think you're right. The Steelers haven't really shown up in 2 games.
I see a +1.5 right now for the New England Patriots over on DraftKings at -115
Value right
juice.
there. I'm telling
Yeah.
you, it's going to be minus one
Um,
and a half.
yeah, I think that's also a great teaser leg there as well. Getting up to 7.5, who that's 3-7 there. So we'll see if they're able to bounce back here in Foxborough in week three. Do the Pittsburgh Steelers play the Patriots? Of course, Mac, one more, I guess, downgrade we should talk about Joe Burrow. He is going to be missing some time here for the Cincinnati Bengals, which is classified right now as a toe injury for the quarterback there. Timeline is a little bit iffy. Some are saying if it requires some type of surgery, he could be missing months. But at this point, at minimum, he's going to be missing several weeks here for the Cincinnati Bengals. And just the injury bug gets to Joe Burrow again. What is I'm not sure if you have it in if you have quarterback rankings or what the downgrade would be from Joe Burrow to Jake Browning for the Cincinnati Bengals team, because yes, they are 2-0 to start the season here. And right now they will be in Minnesota next week, like we talked about it, taking on the Minnesota Vikings. Right now, the Bengals on DraftKings, as we record this episode, are catching 4.5 points
Yeah,
on the road.
and that's moved from they were catching 1.5 to 2. So let's break this down. Like, all right, that is a 2.5 point move. All right, but it's through the three. So really, you add an extra point to that. It's a 3.5 move. But we just talked about that Sunday night football game. The Vikings probably get downgraded a point. They already have been downgraded a point. I would say rough estimate. So it's a 4.5 point move from Joe Burrow to Jake Browning. Browning probably couldn't have looked better coming in, scoring 30 points, getting a couple touchdowns. But yeah, one of the bigger moves you'll see for if any quarterback going down, major downgrade, and probably the end of the Zach Taylor era. In if it's 3 months, like people are saying,
Yeah.
hard to believe. Easy to believe that Joe Burrow will be back, leading the Bengals, being their best quarterback in franchise history. Hard to believe it won't be under a new head coach, in my opinion.
Yeah, he was seen leaving the stadium there in a walking boot and crutches for Joe Burrow. So I think we'll get more information as the week transpires for the Cincinnati Bengals quarterback. Mac, anything else for week two for the Sunday games before we do break down Monday Night Football?
How's your fantasy doing? Mine is trash, but a lot
Fantasy.
a lot of points this week at least.
Yeah, there was, I mean, some very, very high scoring games, or I should say players' performances this week. And I'm pulling it up right now. I am projected to win
Let's
153 to
go.
126. So that'll improve me to 2-0. And
Too
Mac,
strong.
I will say this, probably made the dumbest move all time in my career playing fantasy football because I picked up Justin Fields. I started him. He got me 3.8 points, but I still am projected to win by
Wow.
the numbers
How
that I
many
did.
quarterbacks in your league? How
No,
could you take?
it's just one. So I have Jonathan Taylor, I had
Wow.
Malik Neighbors, Devontae Adams, Jake Elliott.
You must
Those
have had like
guys.
the 85 Bears around Tim McMahon because wow.
That's what it feels like. But Jonathan Taylor and Malik Neighbors combined to get me 61. Devontae Adams almost had a 20 piece. I still have Brock Bowers possibly officially questionable, but I think that he will be able to go on Monday Night Football. And speaking of Monday Night Football, Mac, we got a doubleheader
Let's go.
this week. Let's get into it. The first game, we've got the Houston Texans. They are going to be hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Right now, the Texans are a 2.5 point favorite at home with a total of 42 and a half. No significant news as far as injuries go, but of course, for the Buccaneers, Tristan Wirfs is going to continue to be out. Did see a note earlier this week that Chris Godwin is going to start practicing, but again, they still expect him to be out for another 4 weeks here for the Bucs. So officially, those two guys will be out. And of course, for the Texans, we know Joe Mixon at minimum will miss the first 4 weeks. But the 1-0 Buccaneers going up against the Texans here. Texans laying 2.5 here. Mac, what are your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, it looks to be around 2.7, so some money on Houston. I kind of disagree with it. I think you could argue both of their opponents in week one made them look good. The Rams look really good, so the fact that the Texans were kind of close with them, although they never really had a shot to win it, and Tampa looks a lot better now that they beat Atlanta at Atlanta after the Falcons were able to dismantle the Vikings. I think that's more important data point because I mean, we kind of knew the Texans could play a defensive slugfest with a team that had a Matthew Stafford that didn't have any preseason snaps. That is Sean McVay, I think, perfectly willing to play close to the vest and win an ugly game like that in week one. So I take less from that. Tampa Bay, although having an 80 QBR, 85 QBR from Baker Mayfield, even with yet another offensive coordinator, going to Atlanta and putting up 23 points. I think that's a more telling data point. So I'll lean to, I'd love to get a three. Looks like it's moving in that direction, but I would lean to Tampa Bay on the money line and with the points.
Yeah, this Texans team, there's just a lot of question marks and uncertainty on the offensive side. We know defensively what this team can do. It's just offensively, obviously, when you're missing, Tank Dell, no more Stephon Diggs, of course, lost him in free agency and him coming off that torn ACL now with the Patriots. But after that, you're really relying on two rookie wide receivers out of Iowa State for this Texans team, Xavier Hutchinson, Dalton Schultz, and like I mentioned, they don't have Joe Mixon either. Nick Chubb had a pretty good season debut last week against the Rams, but the elephant in the room and the biggest concern for this Texans team is that offensive line, and it just feels like they're just kind of throwing it at the wall and seeing what names stick for this team. But if you just played unders since D'Amico Ryans took over as the head coach for this Texans team, 8-3 towards the under, that's what, 72.7% in those
How's he
games
only
there.
8-3? Hasn't he coached there for 2 years?
Home games, I mean.
Oh,
Home
okay.
as sorry, let me rephrase that. Home favorites, I should say. The
Okay, all right, all
Texans
right.
are a home favorite since he took over. 8-3.
And I think home favorite is if you're saying this is the coach's style, this is what he wants to do. Well, when he's
Yes.
a home favorite, that's probably the most telling trend.
Yeah, and look, last week this Texans team didn't find the end zone, right? It was a lot of field goal, or it was 3 field goals, and that was pretty much the offense. And after CJ Stroud's rookie season, everybody's ready to crown him as the next MVP. But when you don't have the offensive weapons, you have a below average, to say the least, offensive line that's not going to win you very many games. So um, I'm with you on the Buccaneers here, but I love the under 42.5 in this game here, Mac. So I think that'll be one of my best bets here. We'll get to best bets momentarily, but this could be one of the something similar to what we saw on Sunday Night Football here. I think the Buccaneers will have some success at least through the air with Baker Mayfield back there. I know the front seven has been really good for this the Texans defensive line, but some questions at least in the backfield, or I should say the secondary there for this Texans team. So maybe Mike Evans has a big game being back in Texas. He's from I believe the Galveston area, played his ball at in College Station with the Aggies. So maybe he does have some family in the stands. Who knows? But yeah, under 42.5 would be the look here for me. You like anything else or anything else for this Texans
I'll
Bucks
agree.
game?
I'll give you some consensus. What's that word from Catch Me If You Can? I'll concur. I'll concur on the under 42.5. No Tristan Wirfs as well. I feel like it's an under type game.
All right, second game of the night. We'll be heading to the West Coast and Mac's part of the world. We've got the LA Chargers. They will be visiting the Raiders on Monday night, like I mentioned. Right now, the Raiders catching 3.5 points as a home underdog in a division matchup here. And we saw how good the Chargers looked. Their week 1 game against the Kansas City Chiefs, their 27-21 victory out there in Brazil. And the Raiders, who were also in Foxborough last week, got the 17-10 victory there. This the Raiders now having to fly back from the East Coast to the West Coast. Some may say it's a tricky spot, but maybe not so early in the season. And currently, the total is sitting at 46.5 points in this game here, Mac. But what are your thoughts on the Chargers and Raiders?
Chargers historically, whether in San Diego or even still in LA, have been surprisingly bad at home. But that means if all things are being equal and Vegas tries to equalize all things, they're especially good on the road, and a lot of trends point in that direction. And you talk about how the Raiders have this tough travel spot, but maybe it doesn't matter so much in early parts of the season. I think that exact same case is, again, why I like the Chargers, as I talked about on the contest show. I feel like this is a half point off of where it would be if the Chargers weren't coming back from Brazil. And it's very rare to play an international game. I think it's like the eighth time, and then go play, not only play the next week, but play on the road. But I think Las Vegas, for most LA residents, and especially professional athletes like the Chargers, is just a suburb of LA. It's not necessarily someplace that they're unfamiliar with, and they have 2 extra days on the Raiders to prepare. They were the most successful on a per play basis offense last week against the Chiefs, and the Chiefs looked fine defensively, especially against the Eagles. I would say that kind of makes the Chargers look even better. So it was my best bet last Wednesday, and was a tough week too. Lost my Jets bet, lost some other bets, but I still think my best bet can come through in week 2 with the easy 7-point win, 27-20. Chargers get it done.
Yeah, Justin Herbert, I should say, loves playing in Vegas. I mean, just looking at his individual stats here, Mac. Again, I know it's only 4 games for Justin Herbert, but in each of those 4 games, he's thrown for at least 314 yards. 314, 383, 335, and 346 last season against this Raiders, or I should say, lack thereof, pass defense. So I think building on what he was able to do last week against a good defense, we can say in the Kansas City Chiefs. And look, Drake May was able to have some success last week as well, at least through the air there. So I like. I'm with you. I agree with you on the Chargers side of things, but I really do like Justin Herbert over on his passing yards for this matchup. I believe that number was sitting at 253 and a half. Let me get the exact number. Yeah, 253 and a half right now, currently over on DraftKings. So I do love that for Justin Herbert in this game. And looking at it last week, Mac, in that game against the Chiefs, Keenan Allen, his old running mate, back obviously with the Chargers, led the team in targets as well for this wide receiving group of the Chargers. And it's really going to be three guys, I think, on the offensive side. The running game, at least early on, seems like it's going to be a little bit non-existent for this Chargers team until the rookie, Marion Hampton and maybe Najee Harris get it going here. But I feel like it's going to be on the shoulders and even possibly the legs here of Justin Herbert to wield this team to continue getting victories here. So what a way for this Chargers team to start the season by getting two division wins in prime time, led by Justin Herbert here. So yeah, I'm with you. Let's lay the 3.5 here on the Chargers. I think their team total to go over here as well against the Raiders. So a lot to like in this game here, Mac. But with you on the Chargers, I also do like Herbert over on his passing yards. Anything else you like for this game?
I love being supported by good Herbert stats. Loves Vegas. Uh, I'll I'll say, sprinkle some on the alternative. I feel like Raiders had that blowout win a few years ago. I feel like that still sticks in the Chargers' craw a little bit. Minus 13 and a half. This is going to be
Ooh,
a little bit of a cakewalk from LAC, in my opinion.
yeah. If you want really wanted a nice little same game parlay, minus 13 and a half Chargers, and then maybe take Herbert 300 plus passing yards in this game. I think that will get you some nice odds
Yeah, and he
for
scores two
SGP.
touchdowns. It's like 16-1 or something we're talking about. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
there
go.
we go. All right, before we do get into best bets here for this episode, back before, like I mentioned, we get there, just want to remind everybody get over there, pregame.com, and use that promo code touchdown25. You can save $25 on anything, and you can also get a free best bet over at pregame.com. So, again, football season here, of course, college football, NFL. We got the NBA season right around the corner. Me and Mac are definitely itching for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. But if you go over there and use that promo code touchdown25, you can save $25 on anything and also get a free best bet over there at pregame.com. All right, Mac, let's close it out strong here. Let's get into our best bets here for this episode, whether it's a look ahead line for week 3, whether it's something on Monday Night Football. Let's try to find a winner here for our loyal listeners.
All right. Well, I think if you've listened to everything I've ever done, you might have heard me say this before, maybe on that NBA podcast I do with my man Munaf Manji right here. But I think it's still topical and necessary for you guys to make some money if you're not down on this particular bet quite yet. The LA Clippers in the second game of the season, coming up right around the corner in 5 weeks, October 22nd, are playing the Utah Jazz. And from a pure power rating perspective, the changes they've made couple weeks ago on the NBA Dream Pod, I'm like, I like the Clippers -8. Well, there's been some news about the LA Clippers. There is an
Say the least.
investigation about the LA Clippers. Their best player was getting some money and not doing a lot of stuff for that money. Was the franchise involved with his no-show job? That would be a big deal if the answer is yes. If the answer is no, it's not a big deal at all. And it's just another celebrity getting paid to be a celebrity. But we shall see how it shakes out. Whichever way it shakes out, the Clippers are going to be angry, focused, ready to shrug off this distraction like the New England Patriots in 2007 and dominate a team that they are very qualified to dominate. So the fact that it's the first game of the season at a place like Utah that has no idea what they're doing from a basketball perspective, I think this is going to be quite an easy one. Just gave it out to my clients, getting my clients together for pregame.com, 57% all time on my NBA picks. You know what it is. But this one's for free too. Best bet Clippers -8 at Utah, October
Oh,
22nd.
love it. Yeah, I've seen James Harden absolutely carve up the Utah Jazz, especially with his time with the Houston Rockets and his 2 games. What do you obviously is with the Clippers have been convincing wins on the road, 14 point victory there. And I'm trying to pull up the second one there if my computer wants to load here. Well, there we go. 4 point victory in overtime. But I don't want to turn this into an NBA podcast, but if you so I have plenty of time to go back and listen to the win total episode because me and Max spent 2 hours together breaking down every single win total for the NBA, and we talked about how deep this team is. Yes, they're a little bit older. Yes, they're probably one of the oldest rosters in the entire NBA, but they're deep at every position, and I think that's what they're going to need all throughout the season. And if they have some success in the playoffs there, so there we go. Get on the Clippers there before that number does move in favor of us. Back, I'll keep this one simple. I like Justin Herbert over on his passing yards as my best bet, over 253.5. Again, it's only 4 games in Vegas, but he's absolutely crushed this number. And I'm just not very confident in the running game right now for this LA Chargers team. And last week, the Raiders did actually a really good job stopping the run against the Patriots. And I think that could continue for them throughout the season, which I think their weakness is obviously then in the secondary, where I think Justin Herbert can carve up this defense. I mean, you saw Quentin Johnson have a fantastic week 1. His old pal Keenan Allen is back, and Lad McConkey is there as well. So I think that he should have success through the air in this game here. So over 253.5 as my best bet for Justin Herbert against the Raiders in the second game of the doubleheader on Monday Night Football. Oh, I think we covered the bases here, Mac. Anything else happening or anything else you want to get off your chest?
Yes, I want to say thank you very much for attending the second episode of Straight Outta Vegas Weekend Rewind. I had a lot of fun. Definitely keep the comments, questions, concerns, say never do this again, always do this type stuff on whichever way you want to contact us. But yeah, I'm excited to keep it going. Thanks for seeing number 2.
Yeah, we'll
Wait,
be back for
number 3.
three.
Can't wait. Can't wait.
Yeah,
Just can't wait.
we'll be back for 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to 18 there. So if there's something to
Not
us,
7, not
no,
8. We're gonna do
no.
freaking 20. No, we're gonna do all of them.
Yeah, so if you guys want us to cover anything else on these recap shows on Sunday night that we do, feel free to reach out to us. And we actually have new listeners have that reach out, because there was one gentleman that listens to the prop show that me and Sleepy do. He said, "Hey, can you guys add in some anytime touchdown prop bets in there?" So I messaged my man Sleepy. I'm sure he's hard at work right now, hasn't responded yet, but maybe we can add that. So it's always welcome here anytime I'm hosting shows there. So definitely love hearing from our listeners. All right, we'll be back later this week with myself and Mac on throughout the pods, with its contest pod and all the football pods happening. Of course, like Mac mentioned, every single week here doing the SOVAM weekend recap plus the Monday Night Football preview. So appreciate everybody listening. And